If you've ever complained that it takes too long to get to the endgame farming or that setting up your atlas is a chore, then this video might blow your mind. Today, I'm going to share my strategy that I've used for over a year to hop directly into endgame tier 16 farming and sustain myself there. This strategy is also really great if your goal is to rush one part of the atlas to farm a Maven boosted region. Starting off with a disclaimer though, this guide is for softcore trade league. If you're on hardcore, this strategy is kinda rippy, and it does require a trade, so solo self-found is out. Also, you're gonna want a build that you can confidently handle tier 16s with very early in the mapping process, because you'll be in tier 16s almost right away. I was originally gonna make this video before Expedition League launch, but with all the nerfs, I decided to hold off, and really, I shouldn't have. My steel build was still perfectly fine to follow the strategy, and there were a lot of other very strong builds right out the gate, and I was even making money with this even though I started a couple of weeks late into the league. With that out of the way, let's get into the atlas. Right now, the popular way of getting to the endgame atlas is to use the Leapfrog method. This involves moving around a lot of Watchstones, paying attention to what maps you need in the future, and generally takes a while to do correctly. This method is also majorly flawed because you're throwing away a ton of value while slowly working your way through the atlas. You're also not very focused on what your actual goal is, unless your goal is to literally complete everything and farm every single region, which is not really many people's actual goal. One of the major problems that people run into with the atlas is map sustain and getting the maps that they need next. However, there's a built-in mechanic that you can take advantage of to get more monster density, which means more map drops. Before unlocking 20 Watchstones and facing Cirrus for the first time, every time you spawn a Conqueror in a region, it'll be a 3-map spawn. This means that every single map will have a Conqueror present alongside their extra monster spawns. This normally helps smooth out the Atlas grind with some additional monsters, but what if we didn't want to waste this free map juice on some scrawny yellow maps? What if instead we wanted to take these guaranteed extra packs and put them into tier 16 maps? Well, I'm going to show you how to do that. Step 1. We're going to go to the 4 corners of the atlas and acquire our first 4 Watchstones. My normal strategy is to go through Tyrn's End to Hayward Hamlet as fast as possible. The reason I go through Tyrn's End is because it's the only spot on the atlas where you can go from a tier 2 map to a corner atlas region. And then once you're in the corner, Zana is a really great resource because you can buy a ton of corner maps from her. If you're really struggling to get in a corner though, just buy a map from somebody else. These low-level maps tend to be dirt cheap. You can filter them by map region in the map filter part of the trade site. And yes, it's totally fine to buy a tier 4 map to speed up your progression. We're not worried about doing every single map here, we just want those for our 4 corner Watchstones. Once you've acquired your 4th Watchstone, it's time to move on to step 2. Normally I've been level 78 or so by this point, and I've grabbed most, if not all of my Uber Lab trials from finding them myself or getting them shared by other people. I also make sure to have a 6 link from a divination card by now, and I have grabbed some gear with a lot of life and resistances. In Ultimatum League, I was sitting on about 5,300 HP by this point, but I only had 4,700 in Expedition League. Now we want to go on trade and find the cheapest, non-unique tier 16 map for sale. Now, depending on how fast you are to this point, the prices of these might be super reasonable or super unreasonable. I think I paid 17 chaos on day 1 of Ultimatum League for a pretty gnarly corrupted tier 16. Just note that if maps are still expensive at this point in the league, that means you'll be able to sell maps to others once you start raking them in. If tier 16s are really crazy priced, do some math though, and just use like a Harbinger orb on a tier 14 or 15 and see if you can make a better deal for yourself. Next, you want to put all of your Watchstones into one region. You want to make sure that in this region, you can have the ability to drop a tier 14, 15, and 16. If this is not the case, then put all of the stones in the region of the map you bought, because then you'll be able to drop the tier 16 that you're running, the tier 15 that's next to that, and hopefully you have a tier 14 unlocked. If not, just go run one real quick, like get a low level map to make the higher level tier 14 pop off. Now, this is the part where we need to talk about map investment versus returns. Normally at league launch, you might not invest too heavily into your maps. With this strategy, it's extremely important that you invest, but don't worry, it'll be worth it. You should chisel every single map, use scarabs to add additional monsters or map drops, sextants, and prophecies. Oh, and a single Delirium orb can add a lot of value to the map if you can handle it. If you can't handle it, probably not a good idea to put on there. Now, it might seem intense to invest like 20, 30 chaos into a single map, but there's a lot of extra value in these early maps. Early on, item level 84 bases are rare and sell for significantly more money than they will later in the league. I pull out lots of helmets, gloves, and boot bases, which will sell for a decent amount of money. Some bases will even sell for 4 to 10 chaos each, so you can quickly recoup your investment and start making mad money. Also note that if you're dropping tier 16s, then you're basically covering a lot of your costs here, especially early in the league. Later on in the league though, you don't really need to invest as heavily. I built up a solid pool of top end reds from buying one tier 16 and then consistently investing in breach and cartography scarabs. Now, I know what you're thinking, Don, this won't work. You have like 53 maps completed. There's no way you're sustaining tier 16s. Well, normally on league launch, I have to hire somebody to sell off all of the red maps that I'm dropping, and I typically make several exalts in just pure map sales every single league start. And that's with paying somebody to do it in-game, obviously. After my initial map buy, I've very rarely ever had to buy any more maps, except for sniping completion, like buying some like level 3, level 4 maps, just to get more Atlas completion. But very worst case scenario, I just slap a cheap Harbinger orb on a tier 15. The Atlas completion bonus does not make you drop more maps. It just makes the maps that you drop higher level. So this means you can still sustain maps with having low completion. It's just a little bit more difficult. I normally work my way around the Atlas with the natural tier 16s with Horizon orbs and load up my Watchstones so I can drop tier 10 through 13 ASAP. These maps will sell early on to all the people who are struggling with the Leapfrog method, and later on these maps drop for 2 to 3 chaos each if you're willing to go through the hassle of selling them. Now, after listening to all that, you're probably wondering, Don, why did you bother to make this video? In the next league, they're supposedly going to be massively changing the Atlas, and so all of this is not going to count anymore next league. Well, yeah, that might be true. A lot of this probably will change next league, and there are also some private events like Badger's Private League that's coming up where some of the strategy might help out quite a bit, but also I think that this strategy might be even more popular next league if we go down to 4 Atlas regions, because you'll be able to very easily pop up to tier 16s quickly. Of course, there'll be less maps that'll be guaranteed conquerors, but overall it's just a really fun way just to pop right up to the top. I don't really ever like doing yellow tier maps. I just find them boring, and I don't like going all over the place on the Atlas with places that I don't intend to farm and unlocking things that, you know, just feel like a waste of time. Typically, if I don't want to farm a region in a particular league, I almost never get a single Watchstone out of that region. Like right now, I have no intention to do Tyrann's End. I have 0 Watchstones from Tyrann's End. I mean, why even bother? I'll probably go around and complete more maps, but right now we've been, you know, doing a pretty good job with like just 53 completion. Now, there is one little thing though that I do want to note, is that if you want to do this strategy where you only have one region doing tier 14 through 16, the thing you really need to watch out for is that the 4 corner regions all have maps that are normally tier 16, but they turn to tier 14 when there's only 3 Watchstones in there. So either you don't want to complete those maps, and there's no way to uncomplete them, unfortunately, or you need to take these corners down to 2, which lowers your Awakener level, which is a little bit unfortunate. But if you only have tier 14 through 16 available in one region, you're just going to be getting so many maps in that region. There's not going to be any wasted tier 14s or 16s. And if you completed a tier 14 that you can't really get rid of, just favorite tier 14s in the region that you want to do. This will help weight things a little bit better. I hope this video helped. If this is something that you think you're going to do in the future, or it's just kind of interesting to you, let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much. Have a good one.